Hi, this is a reflection on lesson 285 in A Course in Miracles. It says, "My holiness shines bright and clear today. My holiness shines bright and clear today." Well, I'm back in the studio, back from vacation. It's Monday morning. And I don't know why this lesson, when I thought about it yesterday and this morning, really reminded me of something I heard someone say that really resonated in terms of the experience of like maybe practice is a good word, like using something to achieve some result. And then that can be useful, like having a practice, whether it's meditation or inquiry or moving your body or whatever. And then oftentimes we keep doing the thing and expecting to achieve, to get that same resolution, and it doesn't work anymore. And then we beat our heads against the wall, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why that thought came to me, but with this lesson, because this lesson talks about today I will wake with joy, and that's all I'm going to expect to happen today is just to have joy, be joy, live in joy, feel it. And that's what the word holiness means in the context of this lesson. And what I kept thinking about was the analogy that I heard of the raft. So we're crossing a river. The raft is a tool that we use to get from one side to the other. So we're going on whatever journey. This is the next step on our journey. Oh, I need a raft here to get across. Okay, let's use this raft to get to the other side to achieve that goal or resolution or something. And then we get to the other side and we're like, oh, okay, let's keep lugging this raft onward for whatever reason. It could just be because I just feel like that's what I have to keep doing. Or I feel like maybe there's another river to cross. I don't know, but there's some reason we think this tool is the one I need with me all the time now because it worked in this case. And the lesson is, no, just put down the raft and carry on. Like set it down. It's now a burden. Actually, it's getting in the way of moving forward with ease. And I love that lesson because it's like the way it comes to me now. I don't think of the raft analogy a lot now, but what I do think about is, okay, if I'm feeling resistance energy about anything, I'll ask myself, like, where am I adding resistance? Where am I, sometimes I'll say, where am I injecting chaos into the system? Like something that doesn't need to be there. Like, what is the bare minimum I need in this here, right now, in order to come back to that sense of peace or joy, like this lesson talks about. So that's what I think about is like, if I'm not in a state of joy and peace, then where am I adding resistance? Where am I adding resistance? Where am I still lugging around a raft thinking I need it right here, right now? But the one thing that worked before that was actually useful or that made me feel good or whatever is now a burden. It's now heavy. It's now cumbersome. Sure, there might be another river to cross, maybe a year from now, but why should I lug this around with me for a year? There's probably another raft sitting at that shore, that bank, or there could be tools to build a raft, or it might just be shallow enough to walk across by that point. I don't know. So it's like the mind goes through like predicting what will be useful, what will I need. It's like a protective mechanism. It's like it's a sustainability thing. Like I need to sustain this in every situation that could occur. And then the mind goes bonkers trying to think about everything that might happen and then prepare for it. And that's the burden. It's like, no, just set all that down and be free, because all that we know is right here, right now. And when I feel like it's like what I had to learn to do by non-doing was learn to trust myself in the moment. Like get rid of all that old trauma response behavior of preparation and whatever. It still comes up and I deal with it when it comes up, but it's like now it's fewer and farther between. But at first that was my raft. It was like preparatory, like orienting to everything, and like, well, what if this or what if that, and I need to be prepared and blah 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 blah. And a lot of times I felt like it was out of like, oh, being useful, like I have all the things in my bag, that you might need in any situation, and then I can be useful to people, and that's a different kind of trauma response from, in my case, like the sense of relevance and being seen and, being appreciated. And so there was all of that wrapped up in my preparatory mind stuff too. And then finally I could just trust myself to respond appropriately in any situation. And or if I didn't have the tools, then I know, like, I can pick up a phone, I can text somebody, I can reach out, because now I'm able to ask for help. So for me, this lesson was like, because all I know is what's showing up right here, right now, and the mind wants to, like, my old mind, it's still here, what would like, oh, I've got to have all this information all the time, and be prepared and like know where I'm going, keep revisiting where I've been, and it's just so much. It's so much. And now it's like letting it all go, dropping the raft and being like, oh, what's here? What's right now? And then that's how I come back into joy, is just, if I'm not feeling joy, okay, where am I adding resistance? Where am I still lugging around a raft that I don't need? And then what this really made me think of, that I love to think about, I have to make sure my time's okay, is that whole idea of what's the bare minimum that is needed right now. And I've thought about that my whole life, even before getting into this whole side of things, the letting go side of things, was like, yeah, there's that energy in me that just loves to know what's the bare minimum that's needed. And I think that I talked about that probably like in software development, in my project management, like what's the bare minimum that's needed for every part of my project, so that we didn't go over budget, over time, over effort, and I thought, and then I kept going backwards with this, like, what, I've always had this in me, this like, what, strip things down to their essentials. And it's funny that the mind still wanted, like my inner world still wanted to like have more, even though everything in my outer world was like, I knew that was my reality, like strip it down. So I went back to childhood, and I probably talked about this before, and I had some of my earliest memories are about trying to, and being a little like toddler scientist, trying to figure out how the world works. And some of it wasn't so friendly. Like, one of my earliest memories is outside of my home on the sidewalk. And I think this came up yesterday because I was doing a nature walk happened. Like I was just going to go on a walk, and then all this nature was just like here, like all these bugs and insects and things. And so I was like, it took me right back to that moment of being like, I had to have been like between 1 and 2, or between 2 and 3, somewhere in there. And I was bending down, so I must have been able to walk. I was probably like 2 to 3. And I was playing with crickets, and I would catch a cricket. I don't even know how, because even as an adult, I can't catch a cricket. I don't know how I was doing this over and over again. But I'd catch a cricket, and I would pull off one leg and set the cricket back down and see how far it could hop. And I'd pick it back up and I'd pull off another leg. So terrible. I want to cry for all the cricket deaths or mutilations and pain and torture. I don't know if they feel all that, but oh man. And set it back down and see how far it could hop. And I remember the feeling of trying to understand what makes a cricket hop, maybe which legs, how many legs, and like what is it that makes this cricket a cricket? And what's the bare minimum cricketness, you know? And then I think about today, what's the bare minimum I need to move through this world with, like what's my bare humanness, without adding all the layers and layers of like thought and categorizing and meaning making and blah 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 blah. What's my raw experience of being a human? Fast forward a little bit to my like late adolescent, maybe like 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. 7, 8, 9, yeah, somewhere like that. I'm at a park. We had an after school program, and there was a park we always visited after school, which was lovely. So we got to go swimming at the public pool. We got to play on the playgrounds. We just got to be kids without a lot of oversight, honestly. And so we would just like kind of buddy up or do our own thing, and then other kids would come and be part of it and go away. And I loved the unstructured nature in hindsight of that. And I found myself oftentimes at a tree on a hill, because there would naturally, I'd need some amount of slope. Maybe that's why I love hills. And they'd usually at the base of a tree, there'd be more dirt than grass, and then it would turn more into grass, or there'd be whatever. What I was doing, and then I would have a cup of water or something. From the water fountain, I could go get water. And there, I would build with a stick. I would draw a line through the dirt like a canal. I was making little canals from the root of the tree. It would start from the root, so I found some interesting place on the tree to like pour the water. You know how trees have natural grooves in their roots coming straight out of the tree. So I'd find, and sometimes there's pools, and then it goes down into grooves down to the roots that finally go into the ground. So I'd find an interesting place to pour the water at the start, up on the root, and then see where the water wanted to go. And then I would trace lines, like burrow out lines, like stick width, it's not very big, in the dirt. And I'd do multiple lines. I would see where the water wanted to go naturally without forcing it. And then I would help it get as far down the hill as I could in the most direct route sometimes, but also what's the most interesting pattern I can create that still allows the water to keep going downhill and not stop. The whole idea was like movement, effortless movement, but beautiful expression. Now I'm thinking about it, I'm adding those words now, but in the felt experience in the moment was like, what's the most interesting like way that I can get this water to move as far down the hill as possible, and then keep pouring the water, and just like that was the game, that was the goal, and it's just beautiful to think about, because that's another point of like, not only was it like to remove resistance from the system, that's a tie-in to present day, but in the most beautiful natural way that it can express itself. And then I think about the cricket, and then so many other things in childhood play was about me being a little scientist and understanding the natural laws of this where we're living. And I think that's what a lot of kids try to do with building blocks and all sorts of things, So this lesson to me was so beautiful, because it reminded me like, okay, well, what is joy? This whole idea of like my holiness, which the lesson goes on to say is really the felt sense of joy that's in us that can always be expressed and felt. And like then I thought, well, what's happening when I'm not feeling it? If that's my natural state, it's usually me adding something that's not needed there. Just like stripping things down to their bare essence. that's all. What's the bare minimum that's needed? And I love that. So I think about it a lot. And this lesson kind of tapped me right back into that. And those are the memories I really love to think about in childhood. Those are the good ones that are just like point to my true nature, you know. Like, do you have those? Do you remember? I always want to talk to people about this, but it's probably hard to recall in the moment. So it's hard to like spring this on people. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to ask somebody and say, let's talk about this in a week. You know, like, here's a question. Let's get back together in a week. I just don't see that happening in my daily life. So if you have an experience like that, please share it with me. Like, where were you a little scientist as a kid, you know, learning how the world works? What were your natural inclinations? For me, it just happened to be, what's the bare minimum essence of the thing that is needed, and what's the most natural, beautiful expression of that, you know, to move, to have movement, to animate the essence of the thing. So, man, I love that so much. And maybe that's where I'm at now, is just like, I'm okay with just sitting and not doing a damn thing. And that's my natural expression in the moment. And then the next time I want to dance, right? And the next time I want to paint, I want to sew, I want to think, I want to read. And just like, but not adding to the thing, just doing the bare minimum without expectation of like, oh man, I really should have done this for an hour. I'm going to read for an hour. Yeah. Because I said I would, and I know that makes me feel better, smarter, whatever. It's like, no, if I fall asleep after 2 pages, that's all I wanted to do. That's all that's needed. Bye.